Hello and welcome once again to another week and another episode of the Terry McGriff Show. Just so happy to be back with you good folks, our fans today. Brought to you today by our great sponsors at She-Car, Watch Game Film, Team Sports Arena Direct, also supported by Women's Tackle Football League and also Laces Out Foundation that sponsors the Great Dent Project. Here again with my illustrious co-host sitting in those beautiful iHeart studios, Andre L. Sullivan. Andre, how you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We got past Easter. We on this side of the spring break now, man. Hey, hopefully that heat will start rolling around, get rid of these cold winter days. We in Florida. Let's act like we in Florida. So, hey, I'm looking forward to it. We got I've seen a couple of spring football games over the weekend. I saw Clemson's spring game, kind of put a little orange on, because anticipating being a Jaguar fans, getting Mr. Trevor Lawrence, so I threw a little orange on, watched a little Clemson spring football, and, I didn't get to see my Gators play, so, hey, had to make it up somehow. Yeah. But, yeah, it was a pretty good weekend. I enjoyed my holiday. I hope you did, too. But talking about some topics today, we got a pretty good show. I love some of the things that we're going to talk about today. We're talking about, free agency is we're in the middle of that. We got the draft getting ready to come up here in a few weeks. And just that time of year, you got a lot of activity. I mean, we just things that happened just as much as yesterday. So the first thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about all the quarterback movement around the NFL. And then we're going to get in and talk about some of these pre-draft rumors and why we have so many. Also, one of the things that Liberty was thinking about, was really interested in discussing today, is the tight end and how important a tight end is to a great quarterback. And lastly, we're going to kind of just talk about some things about people that every year there seems to be an unexpected person that gets drafted in the first round. Nobody saw this guy getting first round, like your Janikowski is getting picked in the first round. Somebody's going to pick somebody that nobody's expecting to be in the first round. So I want to see who you think, and I'll tell you who I think. All right, my friend. So we're going to have all our fans sit back and enjoy another great episode of the Terry McGriff Show, and we're going to get started with this quarterback movement, man. Let me tell you, we just got the trade yesterday, hit the news with Sam Darnold being traded from the Jets to the Carolina Panthers. And I think that's pretty interesting because I think they did their evaluation of him and they see a lot that he has to offer their franchise. Plus they have Teddy Bridgewater as an insurance policy if they want to keep him. And it doesn't cost them a lot of money with the quarterbacks. But not just that, you just got guys going all over the place now. Trubisky went to sign up as a backup with the Buffalo Bills, and Andy Dalton went to the Bears. I mean, so much different movement. It's just kind of crazy this time of year. I mean, you're still looking for some pretty good veteran quarterbacks still out there on the street. So, tell me what you think about this time of year with these quarterbacks, and especially this year.
Well, Ryan Fitzpatrick is now with the Washington football team. Of course, Andy Dalton, as you mentioned, with Chicago. Tyrod Taylor over there is a Houston Texan now. C.J. Beathard over here is a Jaguar. Jacoby Brissett is down there in the 305 in Miami as a Dolphin. Joe Flacco is now a Philadelphia Eagle. You mentioned Mitch Trubisky up there in Buffalo. Tim Boyle is in Detroit. Mike Glennon went to the Giants. Thank God. Chase Daniel is now a Charger, and Colt McCoy is now the official backup in Arizona. Listen, it does nothing but tell us what we've known for quite some time, and that's if you don't have a quarterback, you basically don't have a team. Mm-hmm. And, there's still some names that are probably going to wait around camp after draft time. Alex Smith, A.J. McCarron, Robert Griffin III, Matt Barkley, Nate Suter, Sudafeld, Josh McCown, Geno Smith, Blaine Gabbert, Jameis Winston.
No, he signed.
Oh, that's right. He signed back with the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
Blake Bortles. Yeah, listen, all of those guys, they'll probably get picked up. But, I mean, right now, with the NFL draft being so top-heavy on QBs, you want to get your guy.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't like taking risk on those, rookie QBs coming in trying to be the savior to your franchise, so to speak. But like I said earlier, it just shows us that the quarterback is still the position, and until you get the position taken care of, everything else tends to fall apart.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. I just, we not to mention, we talk about this movement, the Rams and the Detroit trade. No, that was a big thing. They basically just swapped quarterbacks, and you just don't understand. I guess these guys are just, if they don't feel like they have their guy, they're ready to right now pull the trigger and get their guys. Not to mention all the draft trades where you're probably going to have at least the first 3 picks in this year's draft going to be quarterbacks. So it's been a really topsy-turvy year with the movement of quarterbacks, and you don't know if it's actually going to be any more. But you think you're coming to the end, but there's still some pretty good free agent quarterbacks out there on the street, as you're talking about Alex Smith to be one of them, and it's just been crazy. I mean, one of the ones that didn't get moved, that we was thinking may get moved, even though they said they weren't going to move. In Houston, talking about Deshaun Watson, and then you got all this stuff, all the things that the allegations that came out against him. I think Carolina really was going to try to make a push for him, but with all those different suits and allegations, I think they decided to go with a different route. So it's still going to be seen whether he gets moved or not, because they brought in some guys to ensure that they had a quarterback in Houston just in case. We forgot about the young man going from Philadelphia to the Colts. How could we forget Carson Wentz in all this movement? He made himself kind of forgettable. So, hey, that's why we got that. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, there's talk Marcus Mariota might get traded as a backup somewhere. It's just a lot of rumors going on right now with all this stuff right now, and it's just, you don't know. I mean, one of the things I wanted to say with this stuff, you talked about some of these things that go on with these quarterbacks, and how their reputation thing that they was talking about how that Lord have mercy, forgot his name just for a second. Deshaun Watson was going to be traded. And now with these allegations come out, he's just not going to seem like he's a good fit for anybody. We still don't know what's going to happen with that. So he could go from anywhere from being traded to, maybe sitting out the year, get through a suspension. Who knows? So, with I still see that's probably could be a movement with Houston picking a quarterback in the draft. It's just going to be interesting to see what that goes. And like I said, that just goes into what I was going to just segue right into our next topic of these draft rumors. I mean, there's just a ton of out there. I'm pretty sure you, and being in the media, you've heard quite a few. The one I've heard recently was there's an interest in the Jaguars in trading the 25th pick for tight end Darrin Waller from the Las Vegas Raiders. Everybody knows that they want a pretty good tight end, and I mean, I'm not sure. In my opinion, I only seen him play a couple of games, but from what I hear, he's really good. He's kind of like the Kyle Pitts type. That's who they compare him to. So just not knowing any better, that might be a pretty good even trade if that happens. But, that's just one of many rumors that you're hearing out there. And I think a lot of this stuff is just smokescreen stuff. What do you think about all this? I
mean, when it comes to rumors around draft time, they're pretty much like buttholes, because And I don't put any stock into rumors. I put stock into the fact that when somebody's card gets turned in and the commissioner just so happens to say their name, that's when I'll say, "Oh, okay, good job." But I can't put any stock into rumors. And like you said, being in the media, I hear about a good 10 per day. No, I'm sorry. Let me fix that. About a good 10 per hour. And I've heard everything from the Jags will trade down the number one pick to get more first round picks to the somebody's going to pay Peyton Manning to come back into the league. You're going to hear everything literally up until now, until the Jaguars are officially on the clock. And so that is, they're rumors, and they'll probably stay there until they become true.
I know. It's like that every year, and I think a lot of them, like I said, in my opinion, a lot of them are smoke screens. Some of them tend to end up being true, but I think the quarterback movement has probably made the rumor mill even more volatile than it's been in past years. It's just, with people looking to get their guy, so to speak. There's moves to be made. I mean, just think about what the Carolina just did, in acquiring from the Jets. They didn't really give up anything to get him. Gave up a second round pick in next year's draft and a fourth round pick and a sixth in this pick. So they really got him for next to nothing. So, I mean, that was a pretty good trade. And I guess the Jets were trying to shop Sam Darnold and took no takers, because I think what I heard, they wanted a first round pick. That was one of the rumors I heard. So there is a case of a rumor was coming true. So these rumors can be true. Most of them are smoke screens, but some of them are out there just fishing to see if it could be too. Some people, I think a lot of the time, these agents put out rumors for their players to see if somebody actually might take the bait. So a lot of these guys, when they don't go to their teams asking for a trade, they'll have somebody put out something that, I heard somebody said this, and then somebody might say, that sounds like a good idea. We don't really care about him too much anyway. Let's see if we can get rid of him. So maybe that's what is going on. Everybody's trying to figure out what they want to be or what they could be this time of year. And it's pretty interesting to, as things go forward, to see where it will be. Now, what do you think? Do you think there are going to be a lot of draft trades this year? What is your thinking on that?
I mean, we went through this last year. Honestly, no. I mean, you got to realize, especially, it's almost as a repeat of last year's draft. Mm-hmm. You have very little film on these guys. Mm-hmm. You didn't get to see them at your combine. They're not sending a lot of recruits out to these different pro days and workouts. Listen, mm-hmm. people, take the draft as it is. If a trade happens, say woohoo and yippee, because it's very far and few in between. Are there going to happen some trades down the line? Yes, absolutely. Some GMs literally can't do a draft without making a trade. I'm sorry, that's just how it operates. And if a draft doesn't happen, it might be one GM, things are getting kind of boring. Let's call Cleveland. So, yeah, that's just how it is. Do I foresee anything right now? Absolutely not. I don't put my stock, I don't put my stock into rumors. I put it when the card gets turned into the commissioner.
Yeah, I know. But as a fan, the fans love hearing these things. And sometimes they can be interesting. The Tampa Bay rumor about trying to trade away some of their picks because, they're trying to make sure they have draft capital when all these guys get old and they break the team up after they try to win the Super Bowl again next year. It's different to hear how teams are approaching their building for 2021 and their futures based on what they've done so far. There's some issues, things out there, what the Kansas City Chiefs are trying to do because, their offensive line situation. They're looking to see if they can move up, but really don't have a lot of draft capital or cap space to really make that kind of happen for themselves. So it's going to be interesting to see what does happen. And as for fans, it is a great time to be a football fan without any football because you get to have some of this stuff to talk about. So it is kind of interesting. I like doing that type of stuff, like giving the fans a little bit of that stuff and see what they want. Here's one of the things that I really, really was thinking about. We're going to segue into talking about these tight ends. I mean, I was kind of just looking at it and looking at the last few Super Bowls and all the teams that had playing in the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl, and the importance of the tight end position on their offense. I mean, you look at the last two Super Bowls, the last three when you think about it. You have the Kansas City when they played the Buccaneers, great tight ends on both sides. when the Kansas City played San Francisco, another great tight end. New England, Philadelphia, two more, another group of tight ends on both sides of the ball. And the importance of tight end across the board and throughout the history, how important these great quarterbacks seem to have always had a really, really good tight end, if not a Hall of Fame level tight end on their offense to make things go. I mean, you look at with Cowboys in the 90s, Novacek was pretty instrumental as their check down tight end. Even though Buffalo didn't win, they had Metzeler. So you always could name these teams that had great teams. Even when they went to the Super Bowl with Carolina, they had a really good tight end. They go all the way back. I'm just thinking New Orleans. They all of them had very, very good tight end play, and the quarterbacks usually had good numbers. So what are your thoughts on that?
I'm very, very torn on the issue because, to be honest, in my personal level of opinion, tight end just doesn't make or break a team. It definitely helps, but it won't hurt you if you don't. Obviously, if you can have a successful running game and you can get the ball out to your outside guys and then play great defense, you'll get there irregardless of who's lining up at the Y, if your Y is tight or outside. So, I mean, yes, don't get it twisted. Having a tight end like Travis Kelce, Rob Gronkowski, Greg Olsen, some of those names that you alluded to earlier definitely help. Don't get it twisted. I mean, I would dare not tell, Bruce Arians or Kansas City that, just go ahead and cut Gronkowski or Travis Kelce. They scrubs. You don't need them. That's stupid. I wouldn't say that, but I would definitely say, it's not a make or break for me personally. If I'm a coach, I'm not building around my tight ends. It's an addition, but it's definitely not a subtraction.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but as I'm looking, I'm not talking about just quarterback numbers here. I'm talking about teams that are playing in the Super Bowl, teams that have had pretty good long-term success offensively. You got teams that just normally just rely on their wide receivers. They've been hit or miss. Even Pittsburgh, where they had their run, they had Le'Veon Bell and all that. They still had somebody like Jesse James, somebody that can kind of get you your third down conversions. Maybe not been your number one target, but was always somebody really, really dependable. And I'm looking at just going back, just when you're looking at all these teams, basically with them making those Super Bowl runs, they had a tight end that was really instrumental in their offense. And it was pretty significant as I go back looking at the amount of teams that had it. Maybe, you maybe go back to the 70s, that wasn't the case. But as you start getting into the 90s, the teams that had those really good tight ends seemed to do better than the teams that didn't, especially when it goes to championships.
But my argument, like I said, it's an addition. It's not subtraction. And I would go as far to argue that a lot of those tight ends were, like you just alluded to, role players, not the guy. And so that's why I say, like, for example, Green Bay did it without that prolific tight end. They had one that they could dink it off to, but like, again, role player. And then they played great defense. And Aaron Rodgers could throw the ball around the barn. But my point to your topic is it's a good thing to have, but my back isn't broken if I don't have it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I just thought the way I was looking at some of these things, it seemed like that where it added up. I mean, even if you go back before this one Super Bowl that the Packers won with Aaron Rodgers, you look at the Green Bay teams that went back to back, even though they lost the second one, they had Chamora. Broncos had, oh Lord have mercy, it's got its own TV show. I hate when I forget these guys' names, but you know what I'm talking about. They've all had really good tight ends, and I'm talking about, remember the name of a Hall of Fame tight end, Shannon Sharp. There he is. These guys seem like they may not have been the number one target, but it seems like they were kind of like the X factor guy. They're your guy to keep your chains moving. They'll get you your short yardage touchdowns and all that type of your end zone area touchdowns and things like nature. And it seems like those are those are the teams that seem like they always had a way of being able to pull out the playoff wins and get to the Super Bowl. And that's where I was just kind of looking at that, going back and forth. What teams, who won the Super Bowl? Did they have a tight end that was instrumental or any kind of significance in their offense? And it seemed like it was more often than not those teams that, especially when you talk about the 2000s and the 90s, seemed like more often than not that tight end really put you over the top. Make sense what I'm saying?
No, I totally get you. I just feel the correct term would be role player more than essential guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess and I see it because, they're really not the guy that you're going to target as your number one target unless you were Carolina back in the day. Well, I take that back. Maybe you can. That's debatable with New England because Gronk seemed to be sometimes he was their number one guy, and you did have to game plan around him. Actually, if you're talking about also, it's hit or miss, but actually, if you talk about when San Francisco went to the Super Bowl, their tight end was their number one target. So, it's debatable, but the numbers and if you look at go back through your Super Bowl recently, those guys have been really significant in that offense and in that quarterback's play, especially young quarterbacks in their development. I don't think Carson Wentz it definitely had that MVP type season without having Zach Ertz and all the other tight ends that he had, because that was one of his main checkdowns when he couldn't find his wide receiver. Because the first thing he would want to do after that was take off and run. So, a tight end is always good in a young quarterback's development. So I get what you're saying, them being a role player, but, having that guy is kind of your X factor guy and getting you to the next level and especially advancing in the playoffs. And we'll leave it at that. We just kind of we don't think we disagreeing, but I think it's just interesting, and we'll kind of keep an eye on it on the next as we go forward. I just was looking back in there. I think as we go we'll see what happens this year. Gronk had a big game. Kelsey didn't, and who won and who didn't. But that Tampa Bay Bucs defense was just lights out that night anyway. Just segue into something that I really want to think about, today. We always seem to have somebody in the draft that nobody saw getting picked in the first round. And it just seems to come out of left field why would you pick this guy? Everybody knows about the Janikowski situation. Nobody saw Janikowski being a first-round pick, and he was. And it seems like you get guys that jump up in the first round, and people are like, wait a minute, I didn't see that happening. And, always the old saying, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And I was just thinking about some of the people that I would think about who might come out in this year's first round that nobody was really thinking would be a first-round pick. And wanted to get your thoughts on that.
No problem. I look no further than right here in my own state of Florida, hailing from Tallahassee State. I'm sorry, from Tallahassee, Florida, from Florida State, that is, Marvin Wilson, the defensive tackle. Mm-hmm. And to my knowledge, I don't understand why this guy isn't getting much more press than he already is. Granted, I understand it's a whole quarterback-heavy draft early in the front end, but somebody who stands 6'5", 310 pounds, is a former all-conference player, 44 tackles, and 43 of those are unassisted. Mm-hmm. In the ACC, where a Florida State team for the last few years, their defense has been on the field more than their offense. I for the life of me, I don't get why this man has not getting the press that, in my personal opinion, I feel he deserves. And a 5-star recruit coming out of the state of Texas, literally a ACC academic team. Mm-hmm. In the 2019 season alone, 8.5 tackles for a loss, 4 passes defended, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 5.5 sacks. And I feel like he's one of those guys that's going to sneak late into those teams that are 25 and between 32 who are in desperate need of a quarterback or receiver that has been floating around here. I feel like he's one of those guys that could sneak right in there and get it, because if you look at his film, he wreaks havoc. And he did, and I get why he didn't get a lot of press. You know, Florida State's been boo boo for the last few years. I get that, but at the end of the day, he has not, and consistently in his years wearing the Seminole uniform has wreaked havoc not only in the ACC but every game that he's played in. So Marvin might be that guy that just so happens if we see the Patriots or Kansas City or Tampa Bay get him, don't be surprised if he's lining up next to the Ndamukong Suh or one of those guys next year.
Yeah, I agree with you far as because of his performance. He has been a dominant player for his entire career at Florida State. He and I think he ended up opting out somewhere along the line this past season. He probably just said, I had enough of this foolishness. Let me make sure I don't get injured before the draft. And he did. His name has not been out there, but I'm pretty sure. And you can tell me. Usually, sometimes, I'm asking you this question. Do you feel that sometimes some of these scouts that they find this guy, a guy that they know, and they're like, well, we're not going to talk about this guy because nobody.
Absolutely. That's how the game works. Like you go to some of these pro days and you watch the main stuff. You watch the QB play. You watch the wide receiver play. But I've literally seen it where, and there's a guy from Jacksonville University, Andy Jones, who's currently a backup for the Detroit Lions right now. Actually attended Florida's pro day. And here you go. You got Florida. They're throwing routes across the yard. Boom, boom, boom. Then you see scouts look over here like this. Like, oh, who's it? Oh, this guy's okay. And scouts will not say nothing. They'll just
no.
Next thing you know, somebody's getting an invite to camp. But that was an undrafted guy. Or somebody like Marvin Wilson, who they know, and they're watching his bench press, and they're watching his 40, and they're watching his shuttle runs and stuff like that, and they're like, okay, he's trash. They'll go back to the office and be like, hey, if we got time, put his name on that card. It's good God.
Yeah, that's a bit of the gamesmanship of not trying to, and that's where like I said, that's where you get these guys that all it takes is one team to fall in love with you too. That's all it takes. And Marvin Wilson is that's a good choice because he has put in the work. He has been a dominant player that no one has really talked about. One of the people I know, he got a little bit of talk, but I think he might slide into the late first round pick because he fits that type of style. I know Kansas City likes speed. They don't care necessarily about the size of a guy. And the guy, when I got to think, because all I see him was dominating. I'm sure you've seen him dominate against Florida State. Was a young man named Tutu Atwell. The kid is small. He's small, but he's lightning quick and he's fast. He seems to fit into that. He seems to fit into that Kansas City mold of type of player. Now, would most people project him as a first-round pick? No, probably a mid-second-round pick at best. But that would be a guy that I would see them saying that he fits what we do. He is our type of player, even though there's a couple other guys out there. But I've never seen that guy get caught. And every game I've seen him play, he's not the dominant player on the field. He's one of the two or three dominant players. So I would see that, and I'm not predicting that, but that's one kid that I could see slipping into the first round that nobody expected to be a first round pick because of what type of player he is. Another guy that I know that not getting any play as a first round pick, everybody values him maybe later in the draft as a quarterback, but one of the people, then all it takes is one team, especially with this run on quarterbacks that I can see somebody nobody's really talking about is Ian Book. Ian Book is the all-time the winningest quarterback in Notre Dame history, which means a lot. And then if you look at his combine numbers, what he did on his pro day, the man ran a 4.5 40, and he done nothing but win. And I could see the way they're talking about the Trey Lances, and his game is similar to those guys. And I could see somebody falling in love. And I'm going to just say, I would be surprised somebody like the Pittsburgh Steelers, who he can get a chance to sit behind another quarterback and get another year of development. I could see everybody shaking their head and scratching their why would the Atlanta Falcons do something like that? Or Houston. These are the type of teams that maybe got a guy that could be an insurance guy, but he's a guy that I think could come out of nowhere that nobody's expecting to be a first round pick and be a first round pick. You got anybody else?
Oh, absolutely. I got two more, just two more, and both are from Florida State.
Okay.
I might be a little Seminole tip.
That's okay. That's okay.
But it's fine because outside of maybe Javon Holland at safety, the guy from Oregon, Hasman Nasruddin.
I remember him.
The safety from Florida State. I want everybody to close their eyes with me and picture a 6'4" safety who's 212 pounds. And all he does is come down and lay the wood. Because if you look on the film, that's what it is. He's great in coverage. He's great in coverage. But if you just so happen to catch that ball high across the middle, I pray your mama not watching. That's what's going to happen. That's just going to happen, man. Like, literally, and he had a knee injury. I get it, toward the end of this past season. But before the knee injury, and matter of fact, the knee injury happened in week 6 or 7? 101 tackles, 3 forced fumbles, a fumble recovery, 2 interceptions, 3 passes defended, and a defensive touchdown. Seriously, if the one again, he's gonna be one of those late first rounders, might drop into the second round because that first end of that second round is gonna be needing safeties and DBs. They might get a steal here with him, man. And anybody who picks this kid up is going to get an amazing one. And next up is the guy he helped cover on the other end. Everybody might know his father. This guy, AJ, Asante Samuel Jr., who has declared for the draft out of Florida State. His problem right now is that he's not his father's size. Asante Samuel Jr. only stands at 5'10", 184 pounds. But you would not know it in how he plays. You really... I don't call him a shutdown corner yet because he still has a lot of growth to do. But there are some games on film where people stop throwing to his side. Ask Trevor Lawrence. If Trevor Lawrence literally stopped looking to his left this past year in South Carolina when they were playing.
You're right. I remember that.
So I need people to understand what this young man can do. And obviously the name speaks for itself. You look, and when people talk about him at Florida State, they use terms like hard worker, leader, grinder, and that's who he is. Obviously, it's in his blood because his father. He told Florida State, "Don't come get me because of who my dad is. Come get me like what you see." And so that alone tells me what type of guy that any NFL team would get out of a young Asante Samuel Jr.
I think that's a good one because I've seen at least 12 of his games, 2 to 3 years, and I've never seen him where he's not been out of position, and he's always seemed to be, for lack of a better say, Johnny on the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, he saved the game against Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech was basically dominating Florida State on both sides of the ball, but his turnovers totally turned the tide in that game and allowed Florida State, to compete with them. And he was just, wow. When you're like, man, this kid, we know him because it's his daddy's name, but I don't think he gets the pub that he does as some of these other corners. Some of these other corners that are out there will get those names. And on the same line, I know he had a fall from grace this year based on some of the things that he got beat on. But coming into this year, Sean Wade was looked on as a first round pick and, had so-called a couple of subpar games. And next thing you know, his stock plummeting. But Sean Wade is the prototypical cornerback. And I can just imagine there being a run on corners and stuff, and somebody remember him. And because, like you said, nobody's talking about him. So somebody that's our guy. And please don't say nothing about him. And next thing you know, his name gets turned in. And they're like, Sean Wade. And next thing you know, he goes on for the next 8-10 years being one of your top level cornerbacks. Because, just like I tell people, I don't give credit for a 1-year wonder at quarterback for having. I don't give a guy having his typical subpar season when he already put back-to-back great seasons before that. He's been a great player since he got there. And just because of this crazy year, he didn't have his best season, which he still did good in the playoffs and stuff like that. He kind of rebounded. And what I understand, he did pretty well with his pro day stuff. I don't see him not. I can see somebody already having him pegged, and we're not expecting that. And so that would be my other guy.
I'm with it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be interesting as we go and see this draft. We got a lot to think about, a lot to watch. Once again, guys, if you love what we're doing, if you like our content, please hit that like button. Also hit that subscribe button. Also support our people who support us. Watch Game Film, Team Sportswear Direct. Women's Tackle Football League, She-Car. And once again, we got a shout out to our producer at All Sports High, and for my illustrious co-host Andre L. Sullivan. We love that you're loving our show. Keep doing what you're doing. Stay until next week. Stay tuned. Be blessed, and we'll see you right back here next week on the Terry McGriff Show.